Hello world! I wanted to do a little bit of a video diary entry. Now that I'm officially 1 month away from graduation, I just really wanted to take some time to think about some of the questions that have been percolating in my head now that I'm getting closer to this next chapter in life, and see if maybe in the future, once I've lived my way to those answers, I can look back on this video fondly and see how things have changed since I asked these questions of myself in the first place. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So the first question that I have for myself is, how are you intentionally crafting community post-grad? For me, this really roots from ever since high school and also in college as well. Academics were always the priority. I feel like I had some really strong connections in terms of friendships in high school, but I feel like friends were never the number one thing on my list. I think it was always just trying to get into a good college, but also just balancing school with extracurriculars. And going into this next chapter in life, I really want friendships and building those intentional relationships to be my number one goal. Now that academics isn't the main goal, I really want friendships to take over that place and be something that I'm more intentional about going forward. I think going into that, I've been thinking a lot about how does one build community post-grad? Maybe I could start to look into some post-grad communities. I know that there's some that center around the arts. Now that there's no clubs that you can join, clubs in the same way that you have in college, I think that trying to intentionally seek out communities that bring together people that are also interested in my same hobbies and passions, I think is something that I really want to do. So I really love to dance, and I did join a dance group for a little bit in freshman year. I always thought about how cool it would be to start taking dance lessons once I graduated and really try and see if I can get better at dancing. I think one thing that I always wished that I could do better was dance. Well, I kind of have some rhythm. I feel like I could definitely improve my dance moves. So yeah, I think that it'd be cool to see if I could find a dance studio somewhere near where I end up landing post-grad. Also, another thing I've been thinking about too is I have always wanted to host. That's something that feels very peak adulting for me, having friends over, hosting a dinner party, those types of things. My For You page has been flooded with these videos of people doing themed dinner parties or at-home cafes. That's something that I've always wanted to do. If I were to do themed desserts or something, I am really obsessed with black sesame. I've been wanting to do black sesame brownies, black sesame cake, black sesame mochi as well. I think could be really fun. Doing a theme for each one of these at-home cafes could be really cool, and inviting friends over and just kind of having, I think the thing that a lot of people struggle with post-grad, from what I've heard, is that there's a lack of routine with seeing friends. Here in college, you can just walk down the hall and knock on a friend's door and see if they're in and go talk to them. But now, post-grad, people have told me that it's just a lot harder to see your friends or catch up with your friends because it just requires so much more scheduling. So I was thinking about how it could be nice to kind of build in a routine for seeing friends. Every Saturday I'm gonna have this at-home cafe, or once a month I'm gonna have this at-home cafe, so that people can pull up and know that your house is open, and to have people come over and make new memories, not just catch up. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot too, about how I can try and bring people together and also bridge different friend groups, because I think that another really special thing about getting older is that you start to build this tapestry and quilt of all these different friend groups that you've made over the course of your life, the people that you met when you were in grade school and when you were in high school, etc. Get to meet your college friends, and then your college friends get to meet your friends that you meet during work, the first city that you moved to or the first town you moved to. So yeah, I think it'd be a great way to bridge that gap and bring people together as well. So yeah, hopefully I can make some content of an at-home cafe or themed dinners that I do in the future, because hosting would be really fun. The second question I have for myself is, where are you geographically post-grad? So basically, I grew up in the suburbs in New Jersey. Typical suburban experience, if you think of white picket fence, that's what it was. I love New Jersey, but I think that I never got another experience, I guess. I mean, I would have summer experiences where I'd go and travel, but it's not the same as living someplace for a long period of time. I think the longest period that I was able to experience something that's not. The suburbs is when I studied abroad last spring in China. I was in Beijing and I was able to live there for 3 months, which was really awesome. But basically back at Stanford's also the suburbs as well. So I feel like coming from high school, I went to my school K through 12, so it was very much grade school through high school in kind of a little bit of a bubble in the suburbs, and then moving to Stanford, which is a little bit of a bigger bubble because it's also, if you know Stanford, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's made me think about how it could be really amazing for me to get another experience, an experience where I am in more of a metropolitan area, more diversity. The biggest thing for me is the art scene. I really want to be in a place where the arts are really valued. I think that sometimes in the Bay it can be really hard because I think there's not as much of an art scene as I'm used to, having lived near New York, where there's so many plays and things that you can stumble into. Things don't need to be as planned out. Things can be more spontaneous, I think. So yeah, I think I've been thinking about transitioning into city life, seeing how that fits me. I may figure out that maybe I am more suited towards the suburbs and I need to frequent cities and then leave and go back to more of a suburban life after living near a city but maybe not in it. But I think I need to live in a city to find that out. So I want to just try out a city and see how that works for me and maybe see if I think it'll bring me a lot of lessons and a lot of growth. So I'm excited to see how a city can change me. Also, another thing I was thinking about was that besides where I chose to go to college, I think this is the first choice that I'm making in my life of where I'm going to live, and I feel that's a really important one. So I'm excited to be able to choose and hopefully make the right decision, but if not, through those mistakes, then I'll be able to figure out what feels best for me after that. Next, a spicy one, dating. I have been reflecting a lot about this. It's a layered one, I think. For me, thinking about post-grad, it was making me reflect a lot on how I had never been in a long-term committed relationship. I'm 23, so I'm not old yet, but we're getting up there. And I think that for some people, I feel that may be weird. You're 23 and you haven't been in a long-term relationship. Why is that? And sometimes I question that myself. I think that growing up, especially going to a prep school, dating was never a priority for me and wasn't really even something that I thought was an option. It was always try and get into a good school. That was the priority, and everyone else was always super academically oriented as well. So I never really thought about dating until college. Even when I got into college, I think that there was so many exciting things to do. I think I threw myself into my clubs. I threw myself also into my studies as well. And yeah, I think that dating just never happened. And I think now that I am thinking about post-grad and where I want to be, my goals, what's next for me, and I also have started to receive my first wedding invitations, which is crazy. So my friends are getting married and going to their weddings. I've been thinking about, wow, I'm really stepping into this next era of life. And for a lot of people, that means getting married and finding their partners. So it's been making me think a lot about finding my own. And I think that, yeah, post-grad, it'd be really great to see if I can explore dating more, dive into the dating scene, maybe trying out a dating app could be awesome too. So yeah, I hope that I'm able to learn more about myself through dating, learn more about the other person, and be able to just care for someone else. I think is really an important part of life and something that's really beautiful in relationships. So excited to see where and how that develops. On the topic of relationships, I think I've been thinking about how I want to show up for the people that I love in my life. I think I want to be a really good daughter. I want to be a good niece. I want to be a good cousin. Yeah, I think that I've just been seeing how people in my family are getting older. I'm getting older myself. I'm just thinking of, as I am ascending into a more adult role, how can I better show up for the people around me and the people that I love in my life. Lastly, I think that one thing I've been thinking about a lot is who am I post-grad? A lot of people that are students, I think, can relate to having academics take up so much of a part of their life, studying for tests, going to classes, etc. Now that I'm faced with the big transition of post-grad, I have to grapple with what exactly is my identity outside of being a student and being a good student. I'd always defined myself with my grades and how well I'm doing academically. If I'm honest, I definitely derived a lot of self-confidence from that, and I think that that's the way that I evaluated my self-worth in a lot of ways, in terms of my accomplishments and the things that I did as opposed to the person that I was. I think that now that I am approaching post-grad, I need to figure out who I am beyond being a student and figure out what I want to stand for. I feel like I've done that. I think I need to figure out how to define my worth beyond metrics and figure out how I can start to build more of a love and understanding of my self-identity beyond numbers. And instead, I think it gets into more of a valuing of myself as just a human being, as a person intrinsically in my own right. I hope that I'm able to look back on this fondly and be able to answer some of these questions, and it feels so nice to be able to talk through this and be able to vocalize some of the thoughts I've been having, and hopefully this is really helpful for 2025 grads that have graduated or will be graduating soon. I know that graduation, especially at this time with how crazy the job market is, how many things are going on in the world, I know graduation can be scary and feel really unpredictable, and it's nice when people are open about some of the things that they're thinking about, some of their fears, some of the things that are exciting them. It's really important to be real, especially about things like this. Hopefully this provided some value, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.